Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Judith, and today we will be discussing creativity. I think creativity is very important because it is that muscle in your brain that you must exercise in order to just get outside yourself. We live lives very busy and we don't allow ourselves to be creative. And the beauty of the world is that a lot of things were created because of creative people. And yes, I am going to be wearing something different in the next clips just because I realized that I shot it in a weird angle. And so anyways, with that, let's get right onto the video. Mindful observations. When you're mindful of the smaller things, you'll realize how beautiful yet complex life can be. When you take time to really focus on the small things, you start wondering and start asking yourself questions on how things came to be, what's the purpose of the element, how does it affect you, and just unique ways to look at new things. The best way to make yourself stand out with unlimited distractions is to mind your surroundings. Simply put, embrace boredom and creativity will follow because you are living in the moment, because you're allowing yourself to think about the moment and what could be. Journal. This is very important and I've mentioned it in a couple of my videos, but take 30 minutes to an hour, and if you just have 10 minutes or maybe 5, journal. Journal quotes, inspirational conversations, ideas, things that you thought about, songs that you heard, anything that really just made you stop and think and realize, wow, that's interesting, or wow, that touched me. Make sure you write it down, because at the end of the year or at the end of the month, you'll notice that you probably are onto something, whether it be your next business idea, whether it be just ways to cope with your emotions, or ways to just explore beyond your daily life. It allows you to escape into a world that is full of your creative thoughts because you brought in elements to your journal that really stood out to you, and you can live those memories and they mean so much to you. So that creativity part of journaling is so important because you start outlining what could be, what should be, and what really excites me. All those things are very important because we are so busy, we live our lives so busy that we go on our day and things that we recall that were inspiring, we felt that in that split moment and then it's gone and we don't remember it. But when you journal it and you write it down, which leads me to another point, but just make sure you carry a pocket-sized journal because anything at any time matters. So just make sure you have that handy. But really, journaling helps you capture those moments that you normally wouldn't because life is just so busy and it gets the best of us. So make sure that you journal. Blue sky thinking. I love whoever coined this because blue sky thinking is something that reminds me of my childhood when I used to sit down in the grass and then get really itchy, but I used to just stare at the sky and daydream of, I don't know, living in the fairy realm. It's just something ridiculous. But I think that as adults, we've lost the ability to be creative, and blue sky thinking is essentially allowing yourself stretching the truth of what could be in a problem. So when you're trying to solve a problem, this basically says throw logic out of the way. A few examples are, if I could write a book without judgment and fear, what would it be about? If I was the richest person in the world, how would I use my money? This is, again, not being logical. It's just freely thinking on how you would answer these questions without barriers. And it's just your true raw response. It allows you to be creative and not hold yourself accountable to the responses that the world might be looking for. So blue sky thinking is a good exercise to just explore being creative, and it really taps into your creativity. Blue sky thinking refers to thinking, imagining without limits. Think of children. Children are very creative, very energetic, they have no filter, and then they get to a point where this stops. What happened? Creativity stops when self-consciousness happens. When we become more socially aware, we start to realize that the things we say, the things we do actually have meaning and actually affect people. Walking. Science has discovered that walking does tap into your creativity and allows you to actually be more creative. In one Stanford University study, researchers found that walking boosts creativity output by 60%. Walking without distractions allows you to have a one-on-one conversation with yourself. When you really start to take inventory of your time, you realize that you don't have enough time. So when you walk, And when you're walking, preferably in silence, or you're walking with calming music, and sometimes even walking with music or distractions, it just allows you to be linear in your thoughts and just allows you to focus on creative thinking and questions that, again, you normally would not ask yourself because you're normally so busy that you don't have the time to really ask yourself the questions that you would like to ask. And walking really allows you to explore that part of your brain that sparks interest, and you start asking yourself questions that you normally would not ask yourself, thus boosting creativity and allowing you to explore your inner thoughts. The movement aspect of walking is key. It's just like a muscle. Creative mindset is triggered by physical movement, which is why walking with a dog, your loved one, by yourself, feeds into that creativity. Re-conceptualize the problem. As Einstein once said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. Instead of looking at the end goal of a project, for example, to shoot memorable photos, it's better to re-visualize the problem from another angle before starting. In this scenario, instead of asking yourself, what type of memorable photo should I shoot? It should be, what type of photo will create a long-lasting happiness after someone gets proposed to. Sometimes the best approach is to think about the intended audience of your next creative project. Consumption and work separation is very important. Now, I am a culprit of this 100%. I am the type of person that tends to want to activate or take the learnings that I'm currently learning and apply it to my project. That is not work consumption separation. You are putting the two together, thus limiting your creativity. This is a big no-no. What I also did in college was that I was starting on the homework that was due the next day as the teacher was teaching that particular lecture, because I knew that, hey, it's fresh in my mind and I'm gonna forget about it, so I might as well do it now. And that really kills creativity. So try not to do this. Researchers recommend only consuming information in an absorbed state. Don't interrupt yourself to start working on segments of your project. You're consuming information. Instead, use important tools such as Evernote to highlight key insights, elements of a project you want to start, and then apply those learnings later to your project. This really allows you to be more creative because you're focusing on one idea at a time versus trying to understand logically what you've learned and apply it to something creative. You really want to be 100% focused when you want to be creative or you're creating a creative project. Creating a creative project. Show your work. A lesson learned from someone that never started a project. Actually, I did start projects, I just never finished them. So a lesson learned from someone that did this: make sure that you don't wait for the right time to start a project. Start regardless of where you are in life or in experience level. Start a blog, social media account, newsletter. Just start writing and documenting your journey, because people might be experiencing the same that you are and you might start garnering a following. Now with that comes creativity, because now you're adapting and you're actually training your brain to be more creative, so you can start writing things, creating things that your audience is seeking. And this really helps. So it's important to document your process, because in turn, you're also brainstorming, so this is very powerful to do on a daily basis. A rainy day in Paris. I encourage you to picture yourself as the main character in a rainy day inside a cafe, sipping on some hot, warm, cozy coffee. When you put yourself in the mindset and you start feeling these emotions, it really encourages you to think outside the box and really be creative. If you live in a place where you don't get enough rain, I know that there's some places where you get rain all the time, so this is nothing special. But for those of you that live in a location where it doesn't rain often, think about how you feel when it starts to rain. You want to stay inside, you want to be cozy, you want to be covering yourself up with a blanket, sipping on some warm coffee, and then you start feeling like you're lazy, but then again you start feeling like you could just write. You feel inspired. And this is exactly the emotion that you want to feel when you want to be creative, whether it is you want to start journaling that day, whether you want to start drawing, if that's something that you're interested in, start lyrics to a song that you're writing. It really inspires you. So I encourage you to picture yourself in a rainy day in Paris. Sleep, stormy. I found this one very interesting. Ask your subconsciousness the question you're trying to answer. Take Thomas Edison's advice. Try to ask yourself a question right before you go to sleep. Focus on the problem you're trying to solve right before going to sleep. Then relax, forget about it, and go to sleep. This is also what's known as the time machine, or the dreamlike time machine. I think that's what it's called. Essentially, another way is to create a box, like a physical box, whether it be an old Apple iPhone box. You can cut the top, so it creates a way for you to like throw in a piece of paper. So take any empty box, doesn't matter the size, just a box where you can actually cut a hole on the top and you can drop in folded notes. And that way, right before you go to bed, you write down a problem on that piece of note, and then you throw it in the box. You try and focus on that problem which you're trying to solve for 5 minutes before going to bed. Then you go to bed and you dream. Now, I get it. I understand there's a lot of things that are going to prevent you from having dreams, such as insomnia, maybe drinking caffeine too late at night, health issues, complications. I understand that. But if you try and dream, or just think of this method alone, just give it a shot. Let me know if it works, by the way, down in the comment section below. Focus on the problem for 5 minutes right before going to the bed. Then after you've written down the problem in the little piece of paper and you've thrown it inside the box, just think about it for 5 minutes, go to sleep, and then try and down whenever you get a chance on your notebook and your pen that's right by your bed, write down what you were dreaming of. No matter how illogical or logical it is, maybe it's an answer that's totally unrelated to the question you proposed, but just start writing things down that your dreams are telling you, because sometimes, believe it or not, we dream of things without filter, without being censored, and it really allows us to go to that dream world where we are free to dream and think anything that we want. So it's very important. There are a lot of people that have gotten great ideas. I believe one of the members of the Beatles wrote down, I think he got the tune for the song Yesterday, through his dream. So you can actually try and figure this out if you channel it correctly. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I love talking about creativity because it's something that I lacked for 10 years. I've always been a creative person, but as you know, life happens. We choose other paths. We choose sometimes the right path for ourselves and our family. And it's a time where you should focus on yourself and focus on what you want to do, even if you're doing that on the side. But creativity is very important. If you just have 10 minutes in a day to talk to yourself and really release those creative juices, please do it. It is so important to have that time for yourself. Now with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. By the way, I have to call out my 2 water bottles. Normally, I do not buy plastic water bottles, but there's this new rule in the store where we go that you cannot buy more than 2 gallons of water, and they were out and they only had water bottles, so that's why you'll see water bottles. But normally we don't buy water bottles, so I get it. Plastic is bad, and we really try and reduce our plastic intake. So we really try to reduce our plastic usage. So just calling it out there, that's typically not the norm.